Hello.
Hey,
How you
everybody.
doing?
All
It's a little
right.
dark down at the bottom, huh? What happened?
I don't know, baby.
You guys, we're in again. We're in our office because it looks like Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. We used to do all of our stuff in the car from our iPad,
Right.
and we had everything set up in the car. Instagram stopped, iPads from being able to do IG lives.
Yeah.
So we had to switch our configuration around, and so we're doing it just temporary. We'll get back into our car, but what we want to do is. What we want to do is to get everything set up so we get back into the car. So what you've seen is up in our little back in the in our office doing
Office studio kind of a thing.
office
Yeah.
studio. So
give
I guess you guys can give Instagram a hand. So
Hey, Richard Nichols. Hey, Bossa Nova. Hey,
So,
D
yes.
Maestro.
But we're really excited about our guest today. I'm going
Yes.
to
Hi,
I'm
Alicia.
going to send Mr.
Don, the
Yeah.
invitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an important one, you guys, for those of us that are in the industry.
I'm sending him an invitation. He should be logging on.
Any minute now. Hi, Chud.
And so
How y'all doing?
our guest is very knowledgeable and very involved. Not
Hey,
just
Fred. How you doing?
Yes, and very knowledgeable too about
Tiana.
what's going on in terms of Congress, in terms of some of the new laws that are in progress, but also in terms of what's already been done. So you guys can be abreast of what's been done and make sure that you're taking full advantage of everything that they're
Hi,
working
Bill
on.
Stewart. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us, we have ideas, but there's no one in authority that's really out working this stuff for us. And we wanted you to meet this gentleman.
So we have no request. So
Okay, I hope he's doing it right. We might have to call him on the phone.
Yeah, we did it. We did it the other day. We did a quick test with him.
Oh, yeah?
He says unable to join, so let me go back.
Okay, he's not able to join just quite yet. But yeah, so Don is the one that's out there. He goes to the White House, he talks with Congress, and really pushes on our behalf to
So I want to make sure.
to get our.
There he is.
Hey, hey
Hi,
guys,
Don. How you doing?
we made it.
This is really we're so excited to have you here, Don. I want to tell you a little bit about Don. I've known him for years. He is a man with a great heart and a passion for getting us in the industry, especially on the faith-based side. He's actually fighting for us, you guys,
Yes.
and really getting out there and making sure we have our rights. So we wanted you to get to know Don Cason if you didn't. Like I said, he's a wonderful man with a wonderful heart. He's really good to my 94-year-old dad, I also have to say. And but I want to give you a little bit of background that I'm reading from his bio and stuff a little bit, just so you can kind of know better. But Don Cason is the president and CEO of the Church Music Publishers Association Action Fund, which seeks to foster respect for our intellectual property rights and as creators and owners of Christian music copyrights. He also is there to encourage us, encourage the legal use, and he's there to make sure we have the protection of those rights. Prior to his appointment at CMPA, Don was the former president of Word Music. During his tenure at Word, he oversaw songwriters and song developers. Also, some things that you should know, Don has held office in numerous music boards and organizations, including Leadership Music, the Church Music Publishers Association, which we're a part of, CMPA, the Gospel Music Association, the Christian Copyright Licensing International, CCLI, Publishers Advisory Board, and Baylor University Center for Christian Music Studies. So many other things. Of course, he's a part of ASCAP, NARIS.
Well, he's a member, so he's obviously vested in this situation too.
That's right. That's right. And you guys, if you haven't met him before, we want you to know this incredible man. Everybody, please give a warm welcome for Mr. Don Cason.
All right.
Yes, welcome to Carfitable Talks.
Yes,
Of course,
hands.
you'll be able to watch this later too. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing well, thank you.
Pump up your volume.
Can't hear you.
Pump
Hold
up
on.
your.
Does that help at all?
That help a little bit.
Hold on. Hold on.
Are we all the way up on our volume?
Is that better?
Let me see. I'm sorry.
Is that better?
Ours
One,
was
two,
All right, go
ours
ahead.
is down. Okay, we got it now.
Okay, good.
Oh, we're good. Oh, wow, that's good.
Oh gosh, it's so good to welcome you. And
Thank you.
Don is a fan, you guys. He's watched a number of our shows, so we really, really appreciate that.
That's
The other
right.
thing I want you to know about him is, okay, you can hear now, Fred. Okay,
Thank you.
okay, great. And Don has also been an advocate for diversity, and he really has a heart to make sure everyone in the faith-based community knows our rights and all that. So Don, first of all, where are you from? How did you get into this music industry? All that kind of stuff. I never asked you.
A little background.
You know, I've been a music guy from the very beginning. I grew up in Plano, Texas, north of Dallas.
Okay.
And all along, I was very involved with my church music program, had a great youth choir program and all that stuff. And I went to Baylor University with the intent of getting a bachelor's degree and then going to seminary to become a music minister or worship leader. That was my intent. Word, Records and Music happened to be in Waco. And one of the things that they learned and that I learned was I had a lot of music theory abilities, and I worked at that, and I ended up doing part-time work for Word, because during the 70s, the only way to copyright a song was to actually make a lead sheet of that.
Oh.
Wow.
You had to write out on manuscript the chords, the melody, all of that stuff. And I had great penmanship, and I had great music theory accuracy. And so I did that all through college. And
So you couldn't get your publishing without that?
what's that again?
Well, you
couldn't
get to
register
it. Right, you need to have it, yeah.
No, that you had to have that lead sheet in order to register the copyright in the copyright.
Wow.
Yeah, it was different back in 72 and 73. So,
Yes.
but
Right.
that's the way it happened. And then I developed an expertise to do that eventually Word hired me as a music editor to do a lot of their choral accompaniments and sheet music arrangements. I did the early second chapter of Acts books,
Oh yes,
Oh,
I
okay.
remember
Yeah.
song
second chapter.
books. Yeah,
Yes.
BJ Thomas, Evie,
Yes.
all of those song books. I was writing the accompaniments to
Wow.
those song books. So that was what I was doing. And so that led to a job at Word. And then I moved into a full-time job as a music editor. And then after a couple of years, I moved to Los Angeles to do song development out there in the Word West Coast office, which was in Toluca Lake, Burbank area.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There for 4 years, and then I moved back to Waco to move into more of the administration side, the copyright licensing, all of that side of things, and negotiate the songwriter contract deals is what I ended up doing a lot of at that time. So that was back into Waco, and this was like 1984 that I moved back to Waco, and then Word was eventually sold to Thomas Nelson Publishers here in
That's
Right,
right.
I remember, yes.
and in 1992, and we all moved from Waco to Nashville. And then I was at Word for another 10 or 11 years.
Wow.
So I had 28 years with Word and rose eventually to the president position over all the music publishing activity. So that's what I did. Then after that, I went to a company called Music Services,
That's right.
is in royalty processing for record labels and music publishers.
What is royalty processing for those who may
Well,
not?
when a song is used, somebody has got to issue a license to somebody else. Whoever owns the song or administers the song is licensing the use of that song to the record label or the print music company or whatever, for them to use it in exchange for royalties that come back. And as those royalties come back, we compare the royalty rates that are coming back, compare that to the license that was issued to make sure we're getting paid the right rate. And then we determine who gets what share of that royalty, whether it's $1 or whether it's $10,000.
Right.
We split that out, and we did that for record labels, and we did that, or they still do it. I'm no longer there, but Music Services does that for both record labels with their artists and producers and publishers as well. So I did that, and then I retired from there, and then I started the CMPA Action Fund job 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. And it is, just for the sake of clarification, many on this call may know Bryant Scott.
Yes.
Bryant Scott. In fact, I think I actually saw his name scroll across here. So
Yes.
Bryant Scott is the actual president of CMPA for this year.
That's
and
right.
He's running the conventions, activities, and the direction of the organization. I'm with what's called the Action Fund, which is a 501c3,
Okay.
which it's a nonprofit that has the abilities to lobby. So if there's any lobbying that has to happen in Washington, D.C., or anybody has to speak into legislation that affects Christian songwriters or Christian publishers across all denominations, all styles of Christian and gospel music, then I, in essence, am a spokesperson for that organization in Washington, D.C.
And see, I think many on our call don't even realize that this is happening, and that there's a person that who speaks on your behalf so that you can get the best rates and all that. So you guys, that's one of the reasons we wanted you to meet this great man. Is Don is the one for us as a whole Christian community that does that.
Right. Support. Of course, there's a lot of players in the game
There's
too,
a lot of players
that's supporting that, and you, I think one of the roles you do is to make sure that the Christian voice is heard in that process. So we're not ignored in terms of what's going on.
Exactly.
But also, I think the Christian segment is a very powerful or very important segment as well too.
You're absolutely right, Claude. In fact, they actually really strongly desire our involvement, and they completely comfortable with our branding ourselves as Christian music, church music. We proclaim that loudly and boldly.
So you're saying they, as in the whole publishing industry?
All of the people in Washington, D.C. Because so many members of Congress, regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, many of these people are directed by their faith.
Okay.
And so when you walk in and say, I represent the music of the 48,000 Southern Baptist churches, and I represent the music of the 35,000 Methodist churches, and I represent gospel labels, Southern gospel, contemporary Christian, worship, all of that stuff, then somewhere in there, I find a resonating point with that person. And then we have an automatic rapport with each other.
Because they understand those numbers and they understand church.
They do. And when they go back to their own areas, they actually go to worship in their own church. And then suddenly they start looking at copyright notices. And then they start thinking about it and think, oh, that's the guy who manages at least from a legislative standpoint, that's who Don speaks on behalf of. So that's in theory what I do. And we learned a long time ago that kind of voice has a lot of authenticity to it, to congressional leaders. They listen. They don't believe that I'm shucking and jiving, and they, I can give credence to what is in the interest of Christian songwriters and publishers. So that's what I do.
Well, tell us what happened, because I remember you talking in the meeting about the Modernization Act. Can you tell us a little bit about what they were saying about how important the Christian publishers were to that process?
Absolutely. Let me paint a little history first, and tell me if I'm digging in the weeds too much. Okay.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So, back in 2008, I think it was, is when streaming, we finally started to get a hold of what streaming was going to do for the music industry. You know, streaming companies were already moving ahead, and we were trying to catch up. And finally, in 2008, some rates began to be established. And at the very beginning, the rate was for streaming activity was 10.5% of the gross revenue from the streaming company was then set aside as a royalty distribute to all of the songwriters and publishers.
So you're saying just 10%?
Right. That's what
all of that was set aside for anybody that wrote.
Well, no, that they were streaming their music. They were streaming. 10% they would be used to pay out royalties to them.
Okay.
But the deal was that everybody had their own database, and the streaming companies were also having their own database. So it was real easy for them, and I'll give them some benefit of the doubt, but it was fairly easy for them to say, I don't know who wrote that song. Mm-hmm. I don't know who to send the money to. So I'll just let it sit here in my coffers and earn some interest on the escrow the monies, and let it earn some interest. And then if the person who sees that their song is being streamed comes forward, then yes, I'll pay them. I've got it right here. So
okay.
The deal was, that's how it all evolved. And it was that way for about 10 years, until the point to where several parties within the music industry, both the record labels, the publishing companies, and actually the streaming services, got together and said, this is broken, because the streaming services were being served takedown notices right and left by the thousands. And it was stopping their business because they couldn't get the license to stream. And the publisher was saying, you can't stream my song unless you pay me. So it was a really a tug of war there for the longest. So what ended up happening is Congress formed a legislation in 2019, at the tail end of 2019, called the Music Modernization Act.
That's right, yes.
And what it did was it established an organization that would actually sit in the middle between the streaming services and the publishers. Okay. And so the publishers would give this organization all of our data on the songs, and then the streaming companies would give all the data that they had on what they played to this company as well. And then this company would then decipher where the monies go. So at that point, the streaming services didn't have to worry so much about whether or not they were paying accurately to everybody, because now it was the MLC's responsibility to do that.
What is an MLC?
The MLC is the Mechanical Licensing Collective. Mechanical Licensing Collective. And streaming right, a license, is considered partly a mechanical reproduction, a public performance. So, but the MLC was formed under the Music Modernization Act, and the MLC has become the body under which all of these royalties come in from the streaming services, and then they determine who gets paid, and they pay that to all the publishers, who then pay out to all the writers. So we now have one single database that everybody is working off of, and they have worked to make it very, very clean, transparent, and publishers can go in there and see their data. They have all kinds
writers too.
And writers too, absolutely. And in fact, they'll actually allow you to download their entire database. Now you have to pay a little for it, but you can actually download that database and verify songs are in it if you wanted to do that.
Okay, so that's important actually. So people who aren't sure they've got their stuff in there might need to take a look-see.
I went in to check some of our stuff. and it's there, you know.
Yeah,
Good.
So
Good.
well,
Well,
there's a
you know what?
question. You can go to the MLC and
but for right, good, you can do that.
Yeah.
But just for
But what-
clarity, it's really just for the streaming services only for that. It's not for
That-
like labels and record label records and things like that. It's everything that's going through the streaming services is what this collective does.
That's-
Now, can you get access to
It is-
that data?
that's
For
what he
other-
said.
Yeah. I mean, in other words, for say if you want to, well, I guess you did have to go through the record labels to do that stuff then.
Well, I mean, the record labels are going to be the party that's putting out the song,
Right.
but the publisher or the songwriter, if he or she has retained their publishing, still has the publishing rights.
That's right.
The MLC collects just the publishing company's royalties,
Right.
Okay.
or the
Right.
publishing company and the songwriters. They have nothing to do with collecting royalties for the record side.
Okay.
That's
Right.
all through Sound Exchange.
That's okay. That's
Sound
Which is a-
exchanges for
Which
the,
is
okay.
another day that we'll spend talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, yes, people, of course, love Sound Exchange because
If you
it's
would-
allowed many people, especially in our community, to get a check.
Start getting paid.
Right. That's exactly right. So anyway, the MLC and their website is the word THEMLC.com. And I got to tell you, they are the most transparent company I've ever seen in the industry as far as how it comes to data and getting access to the information that you want. They give you all kinds of teaching videos and all kinds of resources like that. I mean, you could spend a couple of days just trolling through all of their resources and learning a whole lot about it. But here's the importance of this. Just recently, the RIAA, the Recording Industry of America Association, or I may have the acronym wrong at this point, but basically the organization that is the trade organization for the record labels, the RIAA.
Right.
The RIAA
That's where the Grammys come from.
Well, actually, that's another.
That's a different organization.
Oh, RIAA. I'm sorry. That's where the gold records come from. RIAA.
There you go.
I had it wrong. I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay. This is very confusing at times. So,
No,
Anyway,
I knew. I just had it screwed up in my head.
yeah, the RIAA. Well, let me think. Where was I going with that? Oh, the RIAA did their report on 2021's results, and they said, flash here, this is important to know, 85% of the income generated by record labels in 2021 came from streaming activity only.
Okay. Say that again, because
Say it
some
again.
people need to hear that.
85% of all of the income earned by the record labels in 2021 came from streaming activity.
So it's very clear that streaming is
That's where all the money
that's the
is right
beast.
now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to realize that there's very few CD racks out there. There's a few vinyl racks that are still sticking around. No 8-track racks. No anything else. So, but 85% of the activity is streaming. And so there is now one organization that we as a songwriter and publisher need to get our data to in order to collect our fair share for our individual songs from this 85% of the activity that's happening at the record labels.
Yeah.
Very, very important to songwriters. So
Very key.
yeah, it really is.
Now, having said that, understanding that 85% of the revenues are generated, are coming from, at least from, I'm talking about publishing, licensing, the royalties is coming from this streaming platform. Now, given that, tell us about the activities that's going on right now to make sure that the rates that are being charged now is fair for writers and publishers. So
Yeah.
what is that whole activity now? Since it's very key, since that's 85%, it's very important that's where the battle is.
It's very key. And you know what, Claude, this is a long explanation. So stick with
That's okay. We want to hear it.
Yeah, stick with me, folks. So there is an organization that's set up by the Copyright Office, and it's called the Copyright Royalty Board. Copyright Royalty Board, CRB. And it is a panel of 3 judges that are appointed by the Register of the Copyrights. And those 3 judges sit over all of the trials, and they have record labels come in, they have digital media companies come in, streaming services, they have the publishers come in, they have songwriter groups come in, and we all present our case to these 3 judges for them to then decide what royalty rates are to be paid from the streaming services to the publishers or from the record labels to the publishers. So all of this with the CRB is really in order to determine the royalty rates paid to publishers and songwriters. And within each hearing runs for a 5-year period.
Okay.
And there was a 5-year period that ran from January 1 of 2018 through December 31st of 2022.
Okay.
And that's called CRB3.
3. Okay.
CRB3. That's 2018 through 2022. And I'll come back to why this is important. And then now the rates from January 1, 2023 through December 31 of 2027 is CRB 4.
4.
Okay.
Okay. Now that's what everybody's calling it. I mean, that's what it's called, the proceedings with this Copyright Royalty Board. So what has happened is that in 2008, there was roughly, give or take a percentage point or two, that these are very complicated formulas as to how the streaming royalties are calculated. But basically from 2008 until the end of 2017, the rate was 10.5% of the streaming revenue. That's what got paid publishers and writers. Well, we went then for 9 years or 10 years, whatever that is, with no adjustment in that rate. And then when CRB was adjudicated before the CRB judges back in August of 2017 for this rate that was going to be from 2018 through the end of 2022,
Okay.
was a 44% increase from that 10.5%. And it graduated each year. So each year, I think it went from 10.5 to 11.4. Then the next year it was 12.3. And the next year was 13 something. And then on all the way up to 15.1 is what paid in year 2022. Okay. But what happened was
this is it.
This is it. What happened was, even though the judges rendered that decision and we publishers thought we had a great victory because we now finally saw an increase in our streaming royalties rate, Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, and Google all filed a lawsuit against the publishers for this rate. And they basically said, we don't want to pay this rate. It's wrong. And so they threw up a lot of procedural hurdles and things of that nature to basically force the Copyright Royalty Board judges to look at it again. So actually they filed a lawsuit in federal court, and the judge of the federal court said, I see your point. I don't know what's right or wrong. So what that federal judge did, he remanded the case and that royalty decision back to the CRB judges, this 3-panel judge who had already rendered that decision. He remanded it back to them for them to review the situation. And then everybody, and this was in August of 2020. So we're already 2.5 years into this new rate.
Into the new rate that we're not getting.
Yeah. So what happened was then we had been getting the increase from 10.5 to 14.4 to 13.3. But then in 2020, when it was remanded back to the Copyright Royalty Board, those streaming services said, well, wait, this may not be an approved rate. We'll just go back and pay you what we were paying in 2017,
Oh, Don, that's
which is the
so
10%
wrong.
rate. Okay. So since August of 2020, they have been paying us 10.5% of the revenue.
And the rate has not. Okay.
But Don, some of these people, 100% of what they do is our music. They just play our music. They wouldn't have a business. And so all they have to do is pay 10% after they use our music.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame, Vicki. But that's what they did. They basically said, hey, if this is going to be reviewed by the Copyright Royalty Board, then this negotiated rate that moves it from 10.5% all the way up to 15.1, that's not a binding decision anymore because the Copyright Royalty Board has decided to review it. So again, they go back and pay the 2017 rate, and that's all that they've been paying us.
That's all they've been paying.
August of 2020.
Okay.
And see, you guys, this is why Don is so important. We've got to have people out there like him to fight for us. And you need to know who these people are and what they're doing. And that's why it's so important that Don's here right now.
The key in the battlefront is NMPA. That's doing the battle there.
Yeah, let's talk about what is NMPA, because our
NMPA is the National Music Publishers Association, and they are the big dog in all of this.
Yes.
Their members are Universal Music Group, Sony Music, Warner Music, all of the major general market publishers.
Okay,
Some
great.
of them have gospel catalogs as well, Christian worship catalogs, but these are all of the pop songs and all of that, and urban and rap, and all of the other genres.
And we work right alongside them.
You sure do.
Just to encourage that if there's any publishers out there that are not members of NMPA, they should become a member of NMPA, and that really helps the whole. I think it helps the whole process.
Yeah, well, their dues is that we're paying is what's going on into their legal defense fund to basically go in and argue on our behalf in front of the judges.
Right.
So if you care about getting better rates, and you know it costs money to make money, so the only thing you can do, or the only thing you should do, is be contributing to that and be a part of the process. So the NMPA and another organization, the NSAI, the Nashville Songwriters Association International, those two organizations, NMPA on behalf of publishers, NSAI on behalf of songwriters, they go in and argue on our behalf for these rates. And so right now, this whole remand on, again, CRB3, which is the rate that's 10.5, and now it's supposed to be moving up to 15.1, but it got stalled at 2020, and they reverted back to the 2017 rate.
Right.
Is now being argued back again before the Copyright Royalty Board. So all the parties who decided this deal back in August of 2017 are now at the table again in front of the Copyright Royalty judges, appealing to, for us, it's appealing to let this royalty rate stand. And
they got to do this because it's getting ready to expire. We get ready to go to another 5-year term.
Yeah, exactly, Claude. I mean, CRB4 is for years 2023 through the end of 2027.
Yes, next year.
So, yeah, so the CRB3 is still going on and trying to be finalized, and then you're going to be starting CRB4 at the same time. And for many of the digital streaming services, we are going to pay a royalty rate for CRB4 based off of what the CRB3 rate ended at. Yes. And of course, since it's decided at this point, nobody can move forward with CRB4.
And these guys have a lot of money to install things.
All the streaming services. So it's all stuck in limbo right now until the CRB judges decide on CRB3. Now, with all that said, I understand that the judges are reviewing some of the last little bits of all of that, and there is some hope that there will be a decision rendered on CRB3 before the end of the summer. And
okay, great.
assuming that we win, then what will have to happen is that all these streaming services will have to go back to August of 2020 and pay all the incremental rates for 2020, 2021, and 2022, and they'll have to pay all of that royalties to the MLC, again, who we talked about a little earlier.
Right.
They'll pay all of that back royalties to the MLC, who will then pay it off to all the publishers.
Right, which then these songwriters who are listening, they need to be asking what happened, because essentially there could be a raise coming, so to speak, in what you're getting.
Yeah. Once it gets through, all this money is going to be coming through the pipeline.
We sure hope
if it's approved.
Yeah, we sure hope for that.
Yes, that's what.
And you know, we're have our fingers crossed, and I know David Israelite, the president of the NMPA, and Bart Herbison, the president of the NSAI, they're working really hard to make sure that our interests are listened to. And you know what? I fit into that role in a very minor way, but whenever they need me, or when they need to pull a gospel writer or pull a CCM writer or pull a worship writer into the mix, that's where we come alongside them and assist them with these efforts. And that's a little bit of what I do.
All right.
It's very important, especially when you figure 85% of the income that we're getting now is from streaming. I mean, and is it growing and
just a little, okay, I'm sorry.
Now, I would say this, that not all genres of music are at the 85%. This is the cumulative total. So I don't know how it's broken down, but my hunch is there is a fair amount of Christian material, and it may be with gospel. I don't know. You guys would probably know more of the specifics about this, but I don't think that Christian labels are having 85% of their income coming from streaming services. So I don't know. So,
yeah, gospel is the CDs and stuff are almost extinct, other than when.
Really?
Yeah, they've really gone down now.
Yeah, it's pretty much streaming.
It's pretty much streaming now, and they're not even purchasing it on. They're not even purchasing. They're mostly streaming.
You mean digital?
The digital downloads are even down for us.
Yeah. Well, I know Southern gospel, there's a lot more sales of CDs in that genre.
Certain genre, you're right. It's CDs.
And gospel has some, but gospel has
like quartets.
Quartets, and stuff like that. But most of gospel, we have this gospel and urban kind of thing going, and so it's pretty much the same. And so there's not a lot of consumption of physical copies anymore at all, or buying digital downloads. I don't know, Brian. I don't know if Brian's still on the line, but he can talk about that even more so. And you guys, why don't you lob us some questions also? Just
one additional point you might want to touch on is that one of the things that they, I think they came to an agreement on was the mechanical rates.
Yes.
The streaming rates were still being.
So, Claude, what are mechanical rates? Let's talk about what a mechanical rate is.
Are you reading my notes, Claude? Are you reading from my notes?
Oh, okay, go ahead. No. He said, are you reading from my notes?
Oh, okay.
Can you talk to us about that?
Perfect setup. I was about to head. Thank you. Thank you for the prompting. Okay, so the CRB judges, these panel of 3 judges again, they determine 2 things primarily for music publishers. They determine a streaming royalty rate, and they determine a physical goods mechanical rate. So anytime a CD is created, anytime a vinyl record is created, a digital download, there are those still happening, permanent downloads. those have been paid a mechanical rate at 9.1 cent per song.
That's been around a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah, when's that going to increase?
Well, you talk about that. Yeah.
So that's been happening for a long time, and there's a per minute rate if it exceeds 5 minutes. But I'm not going to get into the complication.
Right.
Let's just suffice it to say that a song generates 9.1 cent. At this point, as of today, all of the parties have gotten back together to negotiate this physical rate. Now, this rate is important to the record labels.
Yes.
The streaming rate is important with the streaming companies.
Right.
So Spotify and Pandora. So David Israelite and his team negotiate with the streaming services on the one hand, and then they negotiate with the record labels, the RIAA, on the other hand, for the physical goods rate. And so at this point, there is an agreement in place. Excuse me. There's an agreement in place that the 9.1 cent rate is going to be increased to 12 cents.
Okay.
Theoretically effective January 1, 2023.
Okay.
All of the parties, the RIAA and all of the publisher groups have all signed off on it. And I signed off on it on behalf of CMPA. In fact, I'm writing a letter to the Copyright Royalty Board judges to basically say the Church Music Publishers Association affirms this rate. We find this. So that is just all part of the process. So, but the Copyright Royalty Board judges, they are taking comments from everywhere until July 1. And then after July 1, if they are convinced that the majority of the people are accepting of this 12 cent rate, then they will make a declaration and say, boom, it is so. It will be written. Now, the question with that is, so when does that rate come into effect? Does it come into effect in January 1, 2023? Or because the streaming part of this is probably not going to be finished before January 1, 2023.
Well, that's right. They're going together.
It's all one hearing. The streaming negotiation and the physical goods negotiation are all happening under the one hearing, under the one Copyright Royalty Board. So I don't know if the Royalty Board will determine that everybody can go ahead with the with the physical mechanical rate at 12 cents come January 1, 2023, or if they'll have to wait till the whole proceeding is completed and then they do that. However, if it takes it beyond, if it takes it into June of 2023 before this thing happens, then if they didn't make it effective on the 12 cent rate, effective January 1, they will then make it retroactive to be paid by the labels, effective with all sales, effective from January 1 on.
Gotcha.
Now, is there major dissent coming like there is with the CRB3? Are people?
There's not major dissent coming from the record labels. They've all agreed to it.
Right.
Okay.
The NMPA has agreed to it. The CMPA has agreed to it. The National Songwriters Association has agreed to it. But I'm not at liberty to speak as to what other organizations out there that may still have some question about the rate. Now, the thing that's really good about this 12 cent rate, not only is it a 32% increase from 9.1 to 12 cents, that's a 32% increase, but it also then says on an annualized basis going forward after 2023, the rate will increase in accordance with the Consumer Price Index.
Oh, okay.
So as government agency determines what the inflation rate is on our society and how that affects the consumer pricing, that Consumer Price Index will then, that formula will be calculated over our 12 cent rate. And in theory, presuming it's going up, then we will see an increase in the mechanical rate in January 1, 2024, and again in January 1, 2025, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So Consumer Price Index is going to be an ongoing factor to the mechanical rate.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you had something to say?
No, you go ahead.
So having said all that, I think, are there any events upcoming that you're going to be participating in with, was it?
Yeah. We've heard that there's a potential through the new president, Bryant Scott, that we may be going, for example, I can say that we may be going, right? To the Black Caucus.
It's still yet to be confirmed, but we are in the process of trying to work that out. All of this through Bryant. Bryant has the there, and he is trying to get us an entree into the the National Black Caucus, which, the issues for songwriters falls right in line with the issue of the National Black Caucus.
Yes, absolutely.
It has to do with social justice.
Yes.
It has to do with financial empowerment.
Yes.
It has to do with a lot of those kinds of things, with equity involvement, all of those things that are important to our diversity sensitivities. All of that plays straight into what songwriters have need for, with what the rhetoric is for the National Black Caucus. So our hope
that
is
makes sense.
to find those places where we can find people of like mind to care about Black and gospel songwriters, because again, what's that phrase? High water lifts all boats, or something.
That's right.
Rising tide.
The rising tide lifts all boats. And so if we can have an opportunity to speak to Black congressional leaders, which, the focus is going to be on the House Judiciary Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee, because that's where all the copyright legislation is brought up and pushed into all of Congress to review. It comes through the Judiciary Committees. So if we can find the ways to do that, then that only helps everybody. But again, the opportunity here through possibly Bryant's connections is to help us get an audience with certain congressional leaders that sit on those two respective committees, the House Judiciary and the Senate Judiciary.
And I'd like to brag for 1 minute. This is kind of my own little agenda, but you guys, I want you to know that Bryant Scott is the first Black person to be president in this very prestigious organization, CMPA, that is almost 100 years old. So Bryant Scott, get out there and call him, support him, congratulate him. And through Claude and myself, as well as Bryant, and I'm sure even Don, concerns that you have, please let us know, because it's important.
Yeah.
It is important.
How we can help in this process, because this is an ongoing battle. This is not a 100-yard dash. This is a marathon. So we got to be ready to work this thing. And so I think we're going to have. Hopefully, we'll reach out to our representative,
Maxine Waters. We're going to reach out to her.
Yeah.
And everybody, you should do that and let them know how important it is to support this legislation, and Don Cason's activity, because otherwise these big companies like Spotify and stuff like that have all these people out there, and our needs are not. They don't necessarily know that our needs are important.
That's right.
And so you've got to get involved in that way. Don, can you tell some other things? Because I don't even know, people know publishing, but they don't really know why it's important, and why it's important that they know. And in some cases that they have a company that they can talk to, that they can work with, so they know what's going on. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? It's very simplistic, but some people don't know.
Yeah. Well, first off, in these days and times, there are there are several websites that have lots of information about publishing 101 kind of stuff. And I would tell you the best place to go immediately would be to go to the MLC.com.
Yes.
Okay.
That's really one of the most
MLC.
informed websites about publishing. Now, they don't get into sync rights. They don't get into public rights. They don't get into print rights. All of those are different
Organizations.
Rights. Yeah. They only deal with streaming activity. But again, for the record labels, that's 85% of what they're doing.
Yes.
So that's real critical. So if you have songs that are on records, that's real critical. Now, publishers' royalties are split much different than that. 85% of the publishers' royalties are not coming from streaming royalties.
Correct.
There's a fair amount coming from mechanical licensing, the 9.1 cent. There's a fair amount coming from public performance royalties from ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC.
Yes.
And there's a fair amount coming from synchronization royalties when one song is used on TV.
Commercial.
Can you tell us, I'm sorry, a little bit about CCLI though? I mean, some of us, because we're church-based too, I don't know if they're quite aware of that and that that's another income stream.
It is, and it's a big one. CCLI, I don't know these exact figures off the top of my head, but it seems to me they have licenses with about 180,000 churches who pay an annual fee, and then they are responsible. These churches are responsible to log the songs that are sung in all of their services for a specific period of time, and then they turn that activity log into CCLI, which then CCLI then breaks that down and sends royalties to the writers and the publisher based off the happening in the churches. So
I just said 2 important points there.
Yeah, go ahead, Claude.
I said 2 important points there is that your local church needs to be a member of CCLI, and
it's not expensive.
It's not very.
It's nothing.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah. Everybody can afford that, and
then, it is the right thing to do. You know,
right, and also to report it so that the writers can benefit from their songs being used in
sung in church, and that they can get. Right. And like I said, if you have a church of 100 or so people, it's like $100 to $150 a year.
I don't think that's that high.
It's not even that high. Okay. Yeah, it's not a lot.
Well, I know of some churches who have a CCLI license, and they're living in this town. They have songwriters who have commercial success with their songwriting. And some of those churches are not even turning in the songs that are performed in their churches.
Yes.
And so they're horrible disservice to even some of their own church members because they're not turning in all of those songs.
That's very key. And that's not just in your area. I mean, that's in
ours too. Yeah.
So it's very important, that we support these, these songwriters, and the workman is worthy of the hire, so we should support them.
So Don, we're almost through. You're gonna have to come back. You have one more thing, a couple of more things.
I'm trying to see whether we covered all the good stuff here.
You gotta come back on. You still have so much.
I gotta, get messy. Vicki usually the ones that gets messy, so I gotta get messy, Don.
Okay.
Because I know at the last convention there was a golf tournament in which you participated, and Vicki's father participated.
Yeah,
I think he was
my 94-year-old dad.
I think he was the oldest member. He usually participates and represents our publishing company. And on several holes there was the closest to the pin contest, and Vicki's father won. I'm not sure which hole it was. I'm not sure.
It was I think number 12 or 13.
12 or 13, he was the closest to the pin. And I know you and a whole bunch of other guys out there were trying your best to beat him.
We all walked up to the green, and somebody said, "Hey, check out who's closest to the pin." Edwin Mack. You're kidding.
The 94-year-old man.
So we can't let that stand. We got to beat him.
Oh, my gosh. And so I had a ball that was fairly close to the pin. So one of the guys in our group started stepping it off, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. And he went from the cup all the way out to Edwin's ball. And he counted how many foot lengths.
That's my dad.
Okay. And then, so he measured that. And then, so he then measured mine, foot, toe, foot, toe, foot, toe. And Lord knows, my ball was half of somebody's foot longer away from the hole than Edwin Mack.
At 94. So you see why he's our secret weapon?
My gosh.
Tell us about that story.
I thought the dude slammed me. I thought the dude slammed me. It's good.
He's still, well, you guys, and you know, this is a crazy thing to talk about, but somebody in your organization needs to know how to golf if you want to move around in some of these circles. I'm just saying. So for us, it's my dad, but it seems to me that golf is important sometimes to help you learn some of these things. Because they're out golfing.
You guys have great fun out there, I know. And, they always try to get him to tee from the cedar.
What did you say, Don? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
The truth is that any person who can shoot a score lower than their age has got something going on.
That's my dad. That's all he tries to do. My dad tries to shoot his age or under.
Yeah.
He does it.
He walks up, Mr. Umbull. Oh, well, I didn't know that. He goes up to the prize, table where we had prizes, and he picks the least expensive prize. And I heard he said, "Well, that's what I really needed." So that's what I wanted. So
yeah, what he needed.
I know. I said, Dad, why don't you choose the club or what is it really? He said, this is what I want, the cup.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but Don, promise us that you'll come back, and we appreciate so much you being here. And we're going to have you back on. And I think what we're going to do is ask people to give us questions too ahead of time. Would you come back on for us in a few months?
Of course.
Oh, thank you so much.
I mean, so this is fun. Okay, one going out question. What's your favorite fragrance?
My favorite fragrance, the one that my wife is wearing.
That's the best one.
That's what
That's good. Well, I wanted to show everybody what Claude got me.
Ooh.
It's called Cosmerati. And Don, look at this bottle. I mean, you got to see this. This is my husband did for me. Look at this. Wait. This is what my husband just got for me. So.
Yeah. So, Claude, let me throw some trash back at you, my friend. When I told somebody that I was going to be doing this today, they said, "Who are you doing it with?" And I said, "Claude and Vicki Lataillade." And they said, "Claude, he has more baseball caps than anybody in the whole world." And I started looking back on your Twitter feed at all of the old pictures of all the things. He didn't wear the same baseball cap in any of the none of them.
I'm gonna have to count it because he does have a lot.
Don't count. Don't number them because
I'm not saying who told me to say that, but I'm just telling you.
Well, whoever told you the truth.
Yeah, I already know. Hey, yeah, I will come back and we can take questions if you want to.
Yeah.
Yes, that'd be great if we can get some people to come on next time and ask some questions.
Some of this, or you can capture questions in the meantime, and then we can just
capture.
But we can have people come on now, I think. So we could have a third person. So I'd love to have some people come on and ask some questions.
The next time?
Yeah, the next time.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is although I represent the Church Music Publishers Association, I do have some affinity for what's going on the record side of it.
Oh, okay. So right, because we need to get that side involved, too, yes.
So many of the publishers in the Christian and gospel marketplace are also record labels.
Yes.
And so many of the songwriters that are members of a publishing company are also artists on that sister label. So that's very typical of Christian music. And so there's a lot of these things that walk hand in hand. And there are some interesting things going on with the record side of things too, that I'm less informed about and less involved with. but at least I'm familiar enough to talk intelligently for a few minutes about some of those things. So I'd be glad
Yes.
to talk about some of that too, if you want to do that. Or if there's room for 3 or 4 people, or 2 or 3 people on the screen, then I can get somebody else too that can come alongside us, and we can play Q&A with the other person, and they can fill in a lot.
That'd be
Yeah,
good.
that would be
That'd
good
be
too.
good.
I think that would be good.
I think that you've been very informative, should I say, and very, and I know
Very
you
open.
guys are working hard, because if anybody knows your schedule, they say, why does your wife allow that?
Yeah.
So, but we wish you well, and really appreciate the work you're doing, because you don't take it lightly. You
No.
grab this bull by the horn, and you're riding this thing, and I really appreciate it. And I just want to tell you thank you. But I know it's more than just you. You got David over at NMPA, a bunch of folks, walking this walk, and so just want to tell you we appreciate you and thank you for what
Thank
you're
you
doing.
so
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I was just getting ready to say goodbye to everybody, and we promise we'll have Don back on.
Yeah.
And remember to lob in a call to Brian if you can to congratulate him on being president. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll circle back. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you, Don.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
What's
Thank
up?
you so much for watching Carfitable
Yes,
Talks.
thank you.
Please remember to press that like button, and we need you to subscribe. And also,
Leave some comments. Really need to hear from you.
thank you.